One day after the surprise Kanon Catchings decommit, we are back talking about Kanon Catchings and his departure from Purdue. We've learned a little more about how this went down since our instant reaction yesterday, but it really isn't anything mind-bending. It's not going to change what you already heard if you watched the first video. The story is essentially what we laid out, and you can also go watch the Boilers in the Stands video that Craig Bowers and Joe Jackson did last night. I thought they did a really good job with it. What we have heard and what we believe to be true is that there was a meeting. It wasn't on campus. That's the big change. It was just a phone call, but there was a conversation where Kanon wanted some promises. Matt Painter didn't deliver the promises, etc. It does beg a lot of questions, though. And I guess that's what I want to talk about today with you, Cart, because you have constantly responded to this by being like, why were they even having that conversation right now? Why didn't it happen months ago before he committed? Like, what would force them to have that conversation in early June? And then also, there have been some rumors or some buzz that this was NIL related. And I want to talk through that as well. So just basically a day two. Now that we've learned a little more, what exactly is going on? Do you want to start with the NIL side of this first, or where do you want to start?
I think I want to start with the fact that if his name was Tim Catchings, this wouldn't be as polarizing. Can we address that? That Kanon Catchings is an all-time name.
It is an all-time name for sure.
I
And
mean,
he's still a really
Kanon,
fun player.
yeah, oh, he is Kanon with a K. I do want to make that very known, and that he is a talented basketball player. With that said, I do want to leave it to you to discuss more the NIL portion of this, just because I feel like you understand a little bit more than me when it comes to that, and how Purdue approaches that. But what I will say is, I think there's a lot of stuff going on right now and around there about or being said, basically saying that Purdue is kind of did Kanon Catchings dirty, or Kanon Catchings did Purdue dirty. And, I think there's a lot of different ways you could approach it. There's also a lot of different rumors and things that are being said out there. I just really want the point to come across that this is a loss for Purdue at the end of this. Like, I get it. I get that there are players that are going to get more playing time, talented players at that. Cam Heidi and Miles Colvin are ecstatic right now. I think they are, and we stated that yesterday. But at the meat and potatoes of this, I just really want to get across that, like, Purdue lost a talented basketball player. Will that change the outcome of Purdue's season? It very well could. Even though they are a very good team and a healthy program, it could change it. But whatever you say about Kanon Catchings, however you feel about him, maybe like what his personality is, what his intentions are, whether he wants to be one and done, he's a talented basketball player. And talented basketball players help teams win games more often than not.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Echo everything you just said. Okay. NIL side of this first, and then we'll talk like maybe some potential landing spots, and maybe there's some nefarious business going on here. The NIL side of this, I think it was a couple like Indiana fans, or maybe not fan accounts, but I'm not trying to make this a Purdue Indiana thing. There's a lot of message board chatter going on in a bazillion different areas right now. And there was a narrative being pushed here that's like, don't believe the Purdue promises conversation. They're shading the Kanon Catchings character of him and the family. That's not true. What actually happened here is that Matt Painter made some NIL promises that weren't delivered upon to Kanon Catchings. I would just say this. I do not know this to be concrete. I don't have a detailed answer of what actually has happened here, but I do know this. I know how NIL works at Purdue, and it has never involved Matt Painter making NIL promises to anyone. Like, I can say very clearly, that's not how NIL works at Purdue. Matt Painter doesn't play that game. It's not, hey, here's a number to commit. It's not, hey, here, like, I'm sure it's being discussed because you have to discuss it with recruits. But from what we know, from what we've been told from people who are in the Purdue program and have played basketball at Purdue and know what's going on in the program, Purdue players, first off, aren't making a ton compared to other schools. And second, there's an infrastructure in place where everyone basically makes the same amount. It's not a negotiating tactic. It's not, hey, give me a number and I'll see what I can do. That's not how Purdue basketball works. Some programs work that way. That is not what Purdue basketball does. So you lose me. I think, again, it was an Indiana fan that kind of went semi-viral for this. Like, this is what really happened. You lost me the moment you said Matt Painter promised NIL. He doesn't do that game. That's not how it works. So do I believe that one way or another, Kanon and Matt Painter were not on the same page and there was disagreements on exactly what he was signing up for? Clearly, 100% that's what happened. I think it was much more what's it going to look like on the court and who's on the team than it was whatever amount of money that I'm going to be making. Is that fair to say?
It is fair to say. And also that doesn't make any sense in regards to like what changed between, because Kanon Catchings has been committed to Purdue for a very good time. I'm sure him and Coach Painter, the staff, have had communication for a very long time, especially when the first rumblings came about that like Kanon Catchings might be thinking about going another route than Purdue. So it just doesn't make any sense that like now all of a sudden somehow on this fateful day, this fateful Thursday in June, there was a meeting and all of a sudden playing time and money weren't on the same page unless somebody maybe came around and was like, I got more money for you and more playing time for you. And that intrigued him.
Are you implying there could be some
Don't you say the word, Gregory. Don't throw that word out there. I'm just implying that, maybe somebody, like, I heard that Purdue players are only making this and you're going to be playing behind all these good players. That's crazy. I could double that playing time. I could double the zeros on the end of that play on that paycheck. You only want to play 1 year anyway, right? K catch. Come on, man. I got you. You got to deal with all that.
K catch is fire, by the way. Yeah, look, no matter if it was money, if it was role, no matter what it is, no matter how this conversation was initiated, I think everyone would agree this. It was pretty obvious that what Kanon Catchings wants and was after is not the way Purdue basketball operates, whether it's minutes promises, starting role promises, wanting to be a one and done to the league, whether it's money promises. It was a bad fit from the start. He probably never should have seriously committed to Purdue, if we're being honest. And that's not to say he wouldn't have been a great player. He would have been a great player for Purdue. But if this is truly like what he as a player is after, it's not a good landing spot. So maybe this is a good separation for both sides based on what we know about the kid and the player and the program. With that said, if I were a school who was needing a player, and I was a school with money, and I was a school who was pro tampering, this would be a pretty obvious target, right? If hypothetically speaking, like if I were on staff at a school that had millions of dollars to spend and needed a player in this class, and the transfer portal's running out of players, you would start to work down the list of what guys might not be great fits at their school. And I think Kanon Catchings would be pretty clearly at the top of that list. So before we get to potential landing spots here, I think we should say pretty clearly on record, we are not accusing these schools of tampering with Kanon Catchings. I have not heard anything that tells me that happened. The schools we are about to name are schools you can make connections with based on context clues and how they've operated this summer.
I'm accusing them.
Carter, no, we're not.
Sorry.
No, we're not.
All right. You saying? Okay, we're not.
We're not. Let's make it unequivocal.
Yeah, we're not. We are for sure not.
With that said, can I tell you some things that I discovered in the last day?
Please.
Do you know who BYU just hired?
I believe that they hired an OTE coach to their staff, didn't they?
BYU's newest assistant coach is Tim Fanning. You know where Tim Fanning worked? You just said it. Overtime Elite this past season. Tim Fanning coached Kanon Catchings at Overtime Elite, and 2 days ago, joined the BYU staff. What do we know about BYU as a program and how they've operated this summer?
Well, as new members, honorary members of the Latter-day Saints, the funds are abundant.
I mean, every guy they've been after for the last month is like a money play. So if we are hearing Kanon Catchings may have wanted money, may have wanted a promised role, how about a former NBA head coach who's throwing money at kids promising roles? And who, oh, by the way, just hired the guy who has a relationship with Kanon and coached him this season. It doesn't take a genius to point out that connection here. BYU just beat out Illinois for Igor Demon about a week ago because they offered him more money. They just got Mawat Mag from Rutgers because they offered him more money. And look, if you look at BYU's roster card, I think Kanon Catchings would start for BYU. And I think BYU will probably offer him money and promise him a starting spot. Play for the guy you just played for. Seems like a pretty great landing spot if Kanon Catchings' interests and wants here are to be believed. I have another potential landing spot, though, with some connections. Can I fire it at you?
After I also throw in this caveat, he already left for this coach. Like Kanon Catchings was playing high school basketball in the state of Indiana, and OTE already pried him away from there. So it ain't like this coach or this OTE setting or that type of vibe. It wouldn't be easy to pry him away from that. But go on to the second school, please.
It would not be. Do you know of any Big Ten schools that have maybe become a home to, I don't know, talented recruits who have been malcontents that chose to leave Purdue before they got to Purdue?
There is one school that comes to mind, but go on.
Well, I just remember wasn't Dre Gibbs Lawhorn
Oh
who
yeah,
decommitted,
former Purdue commit.
who left Purdue, and then he landed at Illinois.
Mm.
Illinois, that's interesting. Illinois has one spot remaining right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's Illinois been trying to do with that spot? What were they recruiting this week?
Wings.
They hosted Will Riley on a visit, right? Will Riley, the high school recruit who is a small forward who they were trying to get to reclassify into this class. So Illinois is after a small forward, high schooler, incoming freshman right now. That's what they're after. They're trying to pay for that spot for a starting role, by the way, mind you. They're promising Will Riley a starting role in money. And Carter, obviously, Kanon Catchings has basketball in his family. Tamika Catchings is his aunt. Do you know who Kanon Catchings' mother is?
I know that she played for Illinois.
His mother is Tauja Catchings, who scored 1,500 points at Illinois. She's one of the best scorers in Illini women's basketball history. Illinois recruited Kanon Catchings before he committed to Purdue, and he is well familiar with the school. So, like, I mean, what are we doing here? Like, if this kid really wants money in a starting spot, these are like the two most obvious landing spots ever, right?
Oh, 100, yeah, easily. The minute that this happened, I heard Brad Underwood's music faintly in the background.
Yeah. Look, if I were gonna start pointing fingers, I would say this. Maybe the reason this random meeting happened is because his overtime elite coach was in his ear. His overtime elite coach, who now works at a school with a bunch of money and a starting spot to promise. Like, oh, hey, Kenny, you sure you're going to start for Purdue? Are you sure?
Yeah. I mean, and this speaks to how good Purdue is. Very easy school to tamper with because of like the way they approach NIL first off, but also like if you're trying to tamper with a kid, the easiest thing to do is be like, where's your playing time?
Yeah.
Miles Colvin and Cam Heide were there last year and they played on the team. You
Yeah.
think you're gonna come in and he's just gonna give you a starting spot? It's not an indictment to Purdue. It's actually it's actually speaks to how good they are because it makes it easier to tamper with incoming freshmen if you really want to.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, my read on this. His overtime elite coach probably like, you sure you're gonna start? He's like, oh, let me make sure I'm gonna start. Call Payne. That didn't go well. Call coach back. Yeah, I'm open. I'm open. And then the moment he gets open, I would bet Brad Underwood would try and swoop in. I don't think he did anything beforehand, but the moment that I hear Kanon Catchings is in the portal, if I'm Brad Underwood, I'm immediately pulling
Well,
strings. 100%.
Brad has like he has like sixth sense for that thing. He was probably at Thursday night dinner. He was mid bite on his salmon burger because he's been working on his figure as he's going into the season. And literally mid bite, he probably dropped his burger. And Tyler's at the end of the table. Dad, what's wrong? And he's just like, hold on a second. There's a wing in the portal from Purdue. Get up. We got to go. Come on. Grab your keys. Get to the office. Like, that's exactly how it went down.
I love the Underwood family so much. Okay, let me ask you this. If you are Matt Painter and today Kanon Catchings calls you and says, I'm sorry, coach. I'm sorry, Paint. I messed up. I want to come back. Do you take him back?
No, I'm Paint. No, you don't.
I don't think you can.
You can't.
I
You
don't think you
can't.
can.
You literally can't. Honestly, even me being the person I am, I'm a little like, I let talent overtake a lot of things. Like I'll put up with a lot of things if you can put the ball in the put the ball in the hoop. But you just can't. Absolutely can't. You can't because of optics of it. You can't because other players in the locker room are going to be like, what the hell? Like it's over. It's completely over.
One too many bridges burned. All right. The other option we haven't discussed, could he just stay in overtime elite for one more season?
He definitely could, but probably a larger bag if he's not in overtime elite. I don't know how that works, but like if he can play, because he wants to play 1 year no matter where he goes. I don't even care if he has a bad year. I think he's going to the NBA no matter what. Like he's just gonna roll with whatever happens. So he's gonna go to somewhere where he can play and maximize the bag. We just named two locations that where he can play and maximize the bag. Now the OTE option is definitely a play option. Don't know if that's bag maximization.
Also, like from what I know about his time at OTE, he didn't exactly have like a featured role on the team. So if that's
It was like sparingly. OTE is just such a different style of basketball. It makes it so hard to
yeah.
evaluate and things like that.
But if that's really what he wants, I don't think OTE is the best option. Like I think if he truly wants money and featured, BYU and Illinois are the two best options there are.
Yeah, I
What
agree.
what happened the last time BYU and Illinois went head to head for a player?
BYU called Illinois poor.
Huh. What do you think is gonna happen here?
I think they're gonna call him poor again.
If I were Kanon Catchings and these were all of my options, first of all, I never would have left Purdue. I would have stayed at Purdue 100%. But if these are my options now, I would go to Illinois. I would go to Illinois and I would make Illinois really good. I would start on the wing next to Kasparis, Kylan, Rickhouse, and Merez. We'd be nasty. And it would be great. It would be, I've been saying all summer, why hasn't a wing taken the Terrence Shannon role? Kanon Catchings walks right through the door and stumbles into that. But I think he's going to end up at BYU. I would be pretty surprised if it's not BYU, if it's a different college.
I'm the same mindset as you. I would 100% go to Illinois, but I just have a hard time getting over bag, Provo, coach,
Yeah,
assistant coach.
Provo going up, dog.
I'm
I mean,
sorry,
if
I'm
Kevin
just
Young pulls this off,
dog. We're a BYU podcast.
it's
Like
crazy.
and I'm fine with that.
It's truly wild. All right. I want to give a round of applause to Purdue fans, by the way. I think they handled this way more rationally than you and I would have this week. Do you agree with
Oh,
that?
I think that a lot of people handle things more rationally than you and I do.
You're right, but it's impressed me. Have a great weekend, everybody. The NBA draft is coming up, and I've got something awesome for you. We are partnering with the people at NBA 2K Lab. NBA 2K is the best video game on earth. The people at 2K Lab are making some awesome stuff to make that game even more fun, and they just launched their 2024 NBA Draft Simulator, where you can find the official Sleepers Media big board. We ranked our top 75 players in this draft class. Me, Carter, Brian Ralph, Riley Davis. We did it together, and it is featured On the 2K Lab NBA Draft Simulator, you can take control of any team in the draft, play GM with just one click, and see our entire rankings before these videos even come out. Check out the link in the description of this video to try out the draft sim for yourself, and you can find more mini games at nba2klab.com/NBA-mini-games.